Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler, as always with CoolStuffInc, and this is Mono Blue Devotion. This is a favorite deck of mine in Pioneer, I have to say. When the format was announced, this was the first deck I started brainstorming because, hey, it's kind of like playing Merfolk, right? And of course, Merfolk is my favorite deck in all of Magic. That said, we've seen a lot of different takes on this Mono Blue Devotion deck. We've seen builds that are all creatures, all aggro. We've seen these crazy Leyline of Anticipation, Arcanist style, just this all-in on Nykthos, basically, version of the deck as well that showed up at the last round of player stores. And then this is a version that's been doing well recently online. And the big addition here is Sea-Dasher Octopus. Now, these lists are not settled at all yet. So I did a little play testing around with the deck, figured out sort of what I like, and we'll see what works and what doesn't as we play out these games. But Sea-Dasher Octopus will always work. Mutative 2 with Flash, deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. This card's insane, just keeps the gas flowing. So we need some creatures that are going to hit our opponents. And we can do that. We got Siren Stormtamer here. 1-drop evasive creature. Also protects the rest of your creatures. We've got the Spectral Sailor. Flash. Gives you a flash flying body to put it on. And we've even got a Cloudfin Raptor here. We've got a lot of callbacks in this build. Don't worry. Cloudfin Raptor throwing back to the days of Mono Blue Devotion in Standard. The Master of Waves, Merfolk Trickster, and Harbinger of the Tides. Throw back to Merfolk. Now, look. These are actually all in the Mono Blue Devotion deck. Although the numbers come and go. Sometimes you play more counter magic, you don't play tricksters, that sort of thing. But we had to have some Merfolk. We had to do it. So what are the other creatures here? We named our 9 1-drops. We've got the couple 2-drops here. We've got another Brazen Borrower you can use on 2 a lot as a spell. Then we have Tempest Djinn. This just gets huge, of course. It is a flying creature that gets very big. Basic island you control. And on that route, I'm actually probably going to cut one of these castles and add another basic island here. Why not? Well, see if I can find one I can actually add. Okay, maybe not. We'll deal with that in a minute. Anyways, back to the deck. We've got the Master of Waves at the top end here to reward you for all that devotion to blue. But this version you might notice is very heavy on the spells. And that is how we're going to protect. It's less heavy on creatures, not a lot of Gadwick, so that sort of thing in the main deck, but very heavy on the spells. We want to get in there, draw cards with our Sea-Dasher Octopus, keep beating while counterspelling stuff, and that is why you see the Spell Pierces in the main deck. You see the Unsubstantiates in the main deck. I love this one. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. It just buys you the time you need in this deck. You see the Mystical Disputes. This card is just generically very powerful. And then, of course, we can interact with the Brazen Borrower at instant speed. We have the Opt at instant speed. We have the Dive Down to protect our creatures at instant speed. And we have the Curious Obsessions to keep the gas coming. So between Sea-Dasher Octopus and Curious Obsession, it is not hard to keep the cards coming in this build, and that's what's pretty neat about it. Onto the sideboard. I kind of looked at the best of the different mono blue sideboards here, put some stuff I like. We got Aether Gust, Essence Scatters when you need more counter magic. Same with Annul. This is a cool one. This is a nice find. Counters artifacts or enchantments. That can be pretty relevant. Lotus Breach, that sort of thing. Ashiok, when your opponents want to search or play with their graveyard entrancing melody for the creature mirrors, and a Gadwick, because why not? This card's neat. It's crazy that it fell out of favor. So there you go, everybody. This is Mono Blue Devotion in Pioneer, and we're going to have some fun. We got the Nykthos here to make all kinds of mana. Castle Vantress is nearly a free roll, not quite, with the Tempest Djinn, but we do have one in here. We're only going to play 19 lands. You can tell we want to curve out and keep things tight. But hey, let's free roll it. Ipnu Rivulet. This actually comes up pretty randomly against a Dimir Inverter player. If you can force them, especially with this deck, force them into flipping their library over early, give them the 3-4 card library or something to try to win. Boom, hit them with the Rivulet and mill those 4, and they mill out before they can find the Oracle. So that's the deck, everybody. Mono Blue Devotion and Pioneer. Now, I will say, this came up last time on Punting Pioneer. I am still looking for a good Doom Foretold list. So if you find or have a successful Doom Foretold list in Pioneer, please hit me up because I'm very excited to see it. In the meantime, I'm going to add an island back to this thing, and we're going to jump into some games here with Mono Blue Devotion and Punting Pioneer. All right, looking at Mono Blue Devotion here. I like this hand. I'm in. We've got a 1-drop. We've got a Curious Obsession. We've got a Spell Pierce to protect it. What more could you ask for? I mean, I could ask if this is a Merfolk, obviously. But I'm playing the Merfolk Spell Pierce, so in a way, I'm close. See what our opponent ends up to over there. No companions this time around. Whereas we have a bunch of 1-drops and a 2-drop. I cut down to 19 lands on this deck, and I understand how greedy 19 lands is, but You know, on the other hand, look at it. We all it takes is 2. This deck functions very well on low land counts, and if we get to untap, if our opponent doesn't have basically a fatal push after mulliganing to 6, something like that here, they're going to be in a bit of trouble because we get to untap, slam a Curious Obsession on the Stormtamer, pass with the Spell Pierce open. And from there, hopefully things just kind of spiral out of control. And even if our opponent, if they do nothing, we can just spend our mana on an opt. It's actually just perfect. That said, looks like they might have a fatal push lurking over there. Nope. All right, elves, huh? Fair enough. I'll attack into some elves players. I'm in. And they could go pretty wide pretty quick. We'll see what they're up to here. You know, we do have a Spell Pierce, which can catch a lot of things, not just removal spells, obviously. So, and we'll see what we hit. The thing about this mono blue deck is it does what it does very well. You know, look, we have a Siren Stormtamer. We have Curious Obsession on it, and we're protecting it. That's what we want to do, but you know, when it comes to actually killing your opponents, it can be a bit slow. I mean, this is just a 2/2, and it's the only creature we have in play. So, on the one hand, things are going great for us. This is perfect. On the other hand, our opponent could just play something big here. Literally, that was what I was thinking of, like a Lovestruck Beast, a 5/5. So, we'll see. I'm going to bottom this. I want interaction that helps us in the race. Now, the Merfolk Trickster, obviously, he does very well at that, as does the Unsubstantiate. All right, so it looks like it'll probably be next turn that we can make mana with our Nykthos. Assuming I Trickster here, which I probably will. In the meantime, let's see what we draw. I mean, this turn I would slam a Tempest Djinn if we were to draw a Tempest Djinn, you know? So we've got some plays we can look at. Meanwhile, our opponent, I guess, in the tank about how they're not going to block this flying attacker. There we go. All right, let's see what we hit. We hit a dive down. Okay, I'm into that. I like what we've got going on here. Now, our opponent is at 14, and they dealt themselves 2 of the 6 they've taken. So, you know, without a doubt, there is a little bit of a race happening here. I mean, this 5/5 kills us a lot quicker than we kill them, but Trickster does great things at this. We get to tap down the Lovestruck Beast, not take 5 from it this turn, have a Trickster of our own to attack with, unless our opponent plays, you know, something else giant. But we have a Spell Pierce to catch a lot of stuff. We have the Dive Down to protect. We have the Unsubstantiate, depending on what this looks like. This is dirty. Spell Pierce, your great hint, your snap concede. Oh, got him! I won't lie, I love this card. I played Black Green Adventures in Standard a lot back when that was a deck you could reasonably play. I am in love with the Great Hinge, but I also like to Spell Pierce the Great Hinge. I would snap concede too, buddy. I understand. All right, well, in that case, I guess I want all of this. Honestly, just all of it. We're going to have to cut something, though. We cut the Unsubstantiates. They're good. They're very good, actually. I like having them in the main deck, but we can get a little more targeted here. Aether Gust, Essence Scatter, and so on. I think I can probably cut... There's not going to be a lot. I can cut a Stormtamer, I think. I'm going to cut a Spell Pierce, cut an Opt, cut a Dive Down. I didn't really see any removal from our opponent. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but... I know that I had a plan going into the sideboard game, which was to get all of the counters and so on that we can. So I think that's where I'm going to end up here. I think this is just fine. I also like the idea of just trying to go big, right? Both sides, I think, are going to be sort of goldfishing here. Do I want another Annul over a Spell Pierce? It's just the Great Hinge. Whereas in theory, the Spell Pierce can get something else, but Alright, this is fine, I think. I think both players are just going to go wide, and I want to be able to go wider, and I want to be able to go bigger, and if we aren't able to catch the Great Hinge at a opportune time, we'll hope to just lean on counter magic like this. So, as long as it's not a turn 2 5/5 beating us down, in theory, well, opponent does have the Mana Dork, so, yep, alright. Say, in theory, these Essence Scatters will just be good enough, but they have the Land of War Elves, and I guess in this case, the Elvish Mystics. So there's going to be a danger turn. It's going to be this turn right here. What does my opponent do? If not, this game's going to get really awkward if they just slam another Love-Struck Beast, because at that point, we have to be concerned with a bunch of... Jesus. Or it'll be a Rotting Regisaur. Wow, a Love-Struck Beast I could, in theory, try to do something with the Tempest Djinn. I won't lie to you, I don't have a plan for dealing with the 7/6. Wow. I'll tell you the plan I do have. Plan's to take 7. Maybe I want those Unsubstantiates back. I mean, look, this was a known risk of being on the draw and having a bunch of two-mana counter magic, though. You just got to accept it and hope that we get to catch something with one Essence Scatter here. Draw a Harbinger or something like that. Harbinger of the Tide's clearly our best possible draw against Rotting Regisaur at this point. But we'll see what happens. And they just go for the Great Henge here. They got me if it's Great Henge. Unfortunately, it's a Thoughtseize we can do nothing about. So, I assume this takes my Tempest Djinn. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on what the rest of their hand is. They only have 2 cards in hand, and they're discarding to this Rotting Regisaur. So, if we can draw something right now, including just, say, a Merfolk Trickster to buy us a turn, we can actually let this Regisaur decimate our opponent's hand, and then try to build up a board to deal with it. I mean, it's only got 6 toughness. It's not inconceivable we could put a couple creatures out there to deal with it. Tempest Djinn does bite the dust. Let's see... They're going to Heart's Desire. I can't do anything about that. That is not a creature spell. It's just actual black-green adventure, huh? Sure, I respect this. I don't really know how we're going to beat this, but I do respect it. Although, this was a nice one. In fact, this was huge. This was massive. Okay, we're back in the game. Pass a turn. I mean, we've still got to wait. It's an uphill battle here, but we put this trigger on the stack. And then we bounce the Rotting Regisaur back to my opponent's hand. Trigger resolves. They have to discard the Regisaur to itself. That counts as a removal spell, folks. Unfortunately for us, there is still a Love-Struck Beast. There is still the card they drew. We are not out of the woods. We have very little going for us, frankly. But one of the things we needed to happen to win the game was answer that, and we did now. I guess we probably also needed our opponent to not draw a 3-mana 4/4 there. This is a beat-down deck, I'll tell you that. Alright, bring it on. Let's see what we hit. Another island, huh? Yuck. I'm going to take a hit. We have to hope that they whiff. We Essence Scatter the Love-Struck Beast. We only take 6, I guess. They know we have the octopus. I guess they don't want to slam their little creatures into it. Well, down to 7. We're more in this game than I thought we would be when my opponent played a 7/6 on turn 2. But we are still got a ways to go here. I mean, I have to burn the Essence Scatter. And now we hope to draw something. I mean, we get to take another hit from this. The Spectral Sailor does count as something, a very technical something. I mean, I guess I could play it in step, pay 4 to draw a card. Probably wouldn't do that, though. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to. Bringing it in, are you? Okay, well, in that case, let's just go ahead and cast our Octopus. I'll go for a block on the Land of War, or on the Elvish Mystic. And I guess we're not going to get to hit them and draw a card with this. But I think we have to make this play and just hope. Basically, we need our opponent to have nothing. Dual-Leaf Champion is a very long way from nothing. Alright. Harbinger of the Tides are bust, I guess. Merfolk Trickster, maybe? Not quite out of it if we draw very well, but we are likely out of it. I mean, we're going to have to draw something to just deal with this. Basically, we're looking at, like, Trickster to tap this down, being in combat. Like, Chump Block here. None of this looks particularly good. I'd say we're getting beat by a standard deck here. It is close to a standard. A lot of these cards were legal around the same time of each other, but the Elvish Mystics in the Land of War, it turns out they make a pretty big difference. Spell Pierce, not going to get it done. All right, on to game 3. Well, I was right about how the game played out. Maybe I do want these, though. That game did play out pretty much how we thought it would. And I like most of what we have here. Back on the play this time around. Let's get the dispute. All right, let's see how this works out. We want either an aggro hand with the draw engine. Not quite, but this is reasonable. I'll say, or we wanted a big mana hand that could try to go as wide as they did. We didn't get that. That said, this hand seems pretty reasonable. I mean, we get to go Stormtamer on one. I mean, we've just got a lot of plays here, right? This looks pretty nice. We're going to get to pass the turn back with Essence Scatter, and if they don't give us something to Essence Scatter, we get to play a Sailor and an Opt, and our opponent with a Mana Dork, third game in a row, by the way. just saying. All right, well, let's see what we can do here. A Tempest Djinn, all right. This hand has the potential to work out very well. Now, what our opponent does is going to matter a lot. If they just try to slam a Love Struck Beast on turn 2 here, and we get a Essence Scatter it, and then play a Tempest Djinn, that would be great for us. Any creature spell from them here. If they do something else, like Thoughtseize us, geez, things look a lot worse. I have to let it resolve. I assume they're going to take the Tempest Djinn. I mean, this hand is about as resilient to Thoughtseize as you can get. Yeah, they take the Djinn. Because if our opponent took the Scatter, then we would have had the Djinn. They take the Djinn. We still have the same line we had. I guess I'll opt here. Maybe I can hit a Spell Pierce for this. I think I might have cut the Spell Pierces, but we'll see. A Thassa, God of the Sea, huh? Which will not be a creature, but will allow me to scry every turn? I'm in. I'll play this out. Sure, you can have your 1/1 token. If they cast a 5/5 next turn, we'll match it with our indestructible 5/5, which at some point will, in theory, become a creature. There's a Trickster. That's nice, too. So, all right, let's go ahead and slam our Thassa. That puts us up to 3 devotion. This Trickster puts us up to 5. So our opponent moves to combat next turn, I guess. They get pretty blown up by the Trickster. Now, this is the turn for us. This is shields down. My opponent needs a big play. Unfortunately for them, with no big creature, it's not going to be a great hinge. The best it could be is a Rotting Regisaur, and frankly, I think I can beat a Rotting Regisaur in this game. This is pretty much what we wanted. I guess what we wanted to happen, if you want to put it that way. The turn we had to go shields down. It was a big thing. You know, that is what it is. I'm most scared probably of a great hinge. But here's what we get to do. I love this. We get to scry every turn with our Thassa. And a Brazen Borrower is pretty nice. It'd be better if we had a land. I think I have to keep it. I mean, it kind of continues this. We attack for 2 in the air. Our opponent does something on the ground. We try to answer it, and then we win. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Pass the turn back. We're going to have to... Hopefully this Regisaur, you know, doesn't kill us fast. It kind of decimates their hand, removes their ability to outgrind us. That's certainly the hope here. And then, you know, maybe later we get a Brazen Borrower of this thing. I'm going to go ahead and actually just Trickster, though. I think. I don't want to take this hit. And it gives us the devotion for our Thassa to start getting in there with Thassa, really pull ahead in the race here. Because the thing is, especially with Brazen Borrower in hand, I can actually just race this Rotting Regisaur / Lovestruck Beast. If my opponent's plays to play Lovestruck Beast second main phase, that's great for us. Collected Company is pretty good for them. Let's see what they hit. All right, they got a Lovestruck Beast and a Crawl Harpooner. Wow. Okay. Well, I gotta say, doesn't get much better than that. That's annoying. Really does not get much better than that if you're Collected Company. The Harpooner messes up our devotion. See if we can get it back. Cloudfin Raptors. I guess maybe not the best, but it certainly gets the job done in this situation. I get a swing with a 5/5 and at least make them, at least keep them honest here. The 7/6 is tapped. It's going to be rough when it comes back around to our turn, though, or when they attack, though. I mean, this race is going to be difficult. We're really going to need to get some mileage out of this Brazen Borrower. My opponent maybe just going to take it? Gosh, I just anticipate taking 1 billion damage next turn, though. That's the problem. We do have our opponent at 8. And they got to discard 1 more. I mean, that Collected Company was very good for them. That was kind of the... Wow, they discarded a Great Henge. Well, they're certainly all in on trying to beat us down, so we'll see what we can do here. Am I really just going to take 12? Gross. It's that or not hold up the Essence Scatter. I think I have to take the 12. I can start chump blocking later if I need to. Take 12, hopefully Essence... The reason I'm doing this is because I feel like I'm going to need to cast all the cards in my hand to find a way to win this game. So we basically have to Essence Scatter this. We're priced into it because we can main phase this bounce spell. And we can't main phase this Essence Scatter. Or we can say, etc. We have to try to leverage every card we have or we're going to lose. And we might still lose anyways. But imagine if we hit a land here. This is where we're at. Our opponent has no cards in hand. If we hit a land, we can turn this thing into unblockable. Put him down to 3. Brazen Borrower this in the upkeep. Make probably a block to not die. And then we just need to find 1 more piece of devotion. I mean, look, that's our plan to win the game here. We get Scries to try to help with it. We'll see what happens. Aether Gust. Okay. Does that do it? Our problem is that we need permanents. We need lands, too. We have to bottom this. That sucks, but I have to bottom it. And we hit the Unsubstantiate. Okay. Alright, new plan. We're playing defense. This stupid thing has reach. I could attack for 5, force a chump block, or take it from my opponent, but I think instead what we actually have to do is Brazen Borrower the Register with the trigger on the stack again. And then, I mean, hey, if our opponent draws a land or something, we're actually just in a pretty reasonable spot here. Ooh, that was close. We almost cast the Brazen Borrower, not the Petty Theft. Alright, well, let's bounce the Regisaur. It's a top deck war right now. Our opponent top decked better last game. We'll see if we can pull it off this game. I mean, we have the Scries. It's supposed to work out. If we'd hit a land, though, it would have just been so much different because we could have just made Thassa unblockable, put our opponent to 3, and then basically this would have been the game for them, right? We would have Brazen Borrower. We would have had that. I guess it's the game anyways. We would have had the Brazen Borrower to cast from exile to give us a devotion to try to get back in there. We did it. We took down our opponent, picking up a win with mono blue devotion. That was a sweet match. All right, here we go. Trying to pick up another win with mono blue devotion. I mean, I don't know about this hand, but I am a sucker for Curious Obsession, so we're going to give it a shot. There are so many ways this just works out so well for us. I mean, even if it doesn't, we could just draw 2 cards here. Unfortunately, our opponent's going to shock themselves and do nothing. So, I imagine that might mean removal for this Spectral Sailor. Ooh, maybe not. Our island's pretty bad. I'd say, do I feel bold enough to go for this? But given our hand and the clearly somewhat risky keep here, I don't think we can afford to not go for it. I mean, maybe our opponent's just going to opt. Okay, I mean, I could have thrown both of them on there, but this was a much safer line. Although maybe it's correct to say, I have 5 lands, I have to put 2 obsessions on this thing or I can't win the game anyways. But we'll see what happens with this. We can also, hit another 1-drop or something and be able to have 2 obsession creatures. So, didn't quite get there with that, but Thassa is pretty nice as well. We get some scry action going on here. And hopefully just keep drawing cards. I don't know quite what our opponent's up to with the Is It lands. There's an opt of our own. So I think I'm just going to go for this. Sorry, I had the hiccups now. Let's see if it works this time. Oh, it's a petty theft. Could opt to try to find a Spell Pierce. I can't play Thassa. I think I'm just going to let this happen and play my Thassa. I mean, we got one card off of this, and then they basically, by the bounce, get rid of the one. I mean, not the end of the world, right? Now, I don't know that I can make this a creature anytime soon, but I do know with 5 lands in our hand, basically I think if we were to draw 2 more lands, we can't win the game. If we draw 1, it's actually questionable whether or not we could win the game. But I do know that scrying means that we might be able to just keep our draws good. This game might go long, and we'll see what we can do. Another opt. I mean, I guess I'll bottom that just because it's kind of the same thing, right? There, however, that's a Tempest Djinn. Men. I don't know. Ooh, it did resolve. I was going to say, well, okay, I guess. I mean, I don't know what our opponent's doing, but if I can try to make Thassa a creature, I may as well, right? Because if all they're planning on doing is casting Brazen Borrower at the end step, this would be great. Now, it looks like they're going to go ahead and use a removal spell here. But at least we forced it, right? Maybe. Question mark. Here we go. It is an Izzet Charm. Wow, an Izzet Charm to draw a discard. So either that means they have another burn spell over there to take care of our Sailor and turn off our Thassa. It won't do any damage if it's not a creature by the time combat damage rolls around. Meanwhile, they discarded a risk factor. I like that one. And a Temple of Epiphany. So let's see if we get if the Thassa gets through. Wow, it just does. Okay, well, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I mean, I suppose our opponent could play Storm's Wrath or something like that. But with Thassa and now the opt and the Curious Obsession, getting that hit in, our opponent doing nothing to progress their board state. If they're playing Izzet Phoenix, they put no Phoenixes into the graveyard. This seems very good for us. We have a 4/4 as well, also bigger than any Phoenixes. My opponent's just going to pass the turn again. Wonder what their hand looks like over there. Well, Sea-Dasher Octopus is a card. I guess I'll take it. I don't even know how aggressive I want to be here. Do I even play it? We're getting in for... We're coming in for lethal. Huh. Just attack, I guess. See what happens. No idea what they're doing. They've got to just have some kind of awkward Izzet Phoenix hand. And they're finally going to cast a spell, but is it just the Brazen Borrower to chump block? That can't be good for you. Go ahead and opt here. Found a Nykthos. You don't have anything to do with this. Well, I guess I do have something to do with this mana. Alright, I'm in. I guess I wish I hadn't played my land now, but I wanted to do attack first, so let's see what they do here. Are they just going to go for the trade with the Sailor? No, they're going to... Yeah, the chump block on the Djinn. Now they have a removal spell for it, but I'm not doing anything else with this. Let's see if they have anything before damage. Maybe they don't. Okay. And I don't have a stop set, so we're just not going to do it. But frankly, I think that's fine. We have 4 mana to buy a card with Spectral Sailor. Our opponent is just chump blocking. I don't know what's going on over there. I know that they have all 4 Sulfur Falls in play, though. All right, on to game 2. This has to be Izzet Phoenix. I like this. I like this. Guess I like these. Probably want these. What don't we want? I probably need to cut some 3s here as a thing. Huh. Definitely need to make some cuts. I think it's probably a Tempest Djinn. It's Tempest Djinn or Thassa, but you saw how powerful Thassa was in that game. Just beats down the scries, give you so much just I guess the card, not card advantage, but card quality. You know, imagine if our opponent was scrying every turn there for the last couple turns, because they sure could have used it, as they had 4 Sulfur Falls and nothing to do with it. Now, meanwhile, though, we don't have super strong graveyard hate, is the thing. We have the Ashioks, and they are very good, but the thing with Izzet Phoenix is a lot of times they hit the graveyard and come back all at once. Now, it is a less broken format than Modern, so it's not quite as bad as that, where Izzet Phoenix kind of originally became a thing, but it is still a very powerful deck. I mean, Thing in the Ice is actually pretty good against us, but I gotta say, I think I'm in for this hand. I mean, just the one creature, but we can interact with our opponent a lot with this. And we have, you know, the opt to find other cards. And I mean, playing Sea-Dasher Octopus is a 3-drop that draw 3-drop 2/2 that draws you a card, the old Gray Ogre plan. I mean, hey, it works, right? Sometimes you just do what you gotta do. Meanwhile, our opponent is doing nothing. I mean, just playing at flash speed here is just so valuable. Obviously, this not quite at flash speed, but kind of serves a similar purpose throughout the course of the game here. Let's give it a shot. I don't know that I'll be tapping out for Thassa anytime soon. I'm not sad to have it in my hand. Depends on how things go, but I would like to not tap out of my main phase when I have Mystical Dispute and Spell Pierce up. And I will snap Spell Pierce that. Spell Piercing the adventure side of these adventure cards is so insane. I mean, I get a Spell Pierce, a Petty Theft. It also works as a removal for the Brazen Borrower side. Fevered Visions, Brainstorm Brewery preview card, I might add. At the beginning of each instep, each player's instep, they draw a card. If the player is your opponent and has 4 more cards, they take 2 damage. So I'll tell you this, I will be taking some damage off of the Fevered Visions. I guarantee, I accept. That's going to happen. I guess now the question is, you know, I said there was no way I was going to do this, but what if I just went for the Thassa? I think that's probably bad, though. I think the play's got to be mutate onto this thing. Put it over. Swing in for 2. I mean, if there's some amount of removal spells my opponent could have that take this out, even with the Dispute in our hand. That said, I mean, it's a lot, obviously, but that said, I also have a Spell Pierce for it. But even more so than that, the thing is, we drew a card off of it. We put 2 cards in this exchange. We drew a card. If my opponent spends a card, it's still a 2/2 exchange for us. You know, it's perfectly fine. And it's going to be very difficult for them, I think, to finish us off now, as we're going to untap with Spell Pierce and Mystical Dispute open. Just play this. See if we can bait something out for my opponent here. Nope. They got a sweet deck, though. Like I said, I don't know if it's Izzet Phoenix or not. I don't know if this is the point of the deck, if this is a sideboard card. It is kind of sweet tech against Sea-Dasher Octopus, I'll give you that. But if you're not applying any pressure with it, it's not going to go very far. And now I get to pass the turn back with just the world at my fingertips right now. So I got to say, I am a fan of the way this is played out. All right, let's see what the big play is here. It is a Sweltering Suns. Well, Sweltering Suns sounds like a card that should get Spell Pierced. You know, the good news now is my opponent not casting blue spells. I say that as a Mystical Dispute. But we can just pay 3 mana for these Mystical Disputes starting next turn. I will not pay for this one. I will go ahead and let this oh, I punted. Oh, I was like, oh, I'll Mystical Dispute the end spell. Oh, this was a punt. Probably not a super painful one, but a punt nonetheless. And in fact, there's an argument to just saving my counter magic. That board was not incredibly important. It was good, but our opponent's providing us cards. We still have a clock. We still get to untap and have cards. I don't even think letting that resolve is the worst thing in the world, frankly. So I'm not going to stress about it too much, honestly. Let's go ahead and play out the... I guess this is the turn we play this. And we pass back with everything open still. I mean, look, the thing is, we're still ahead in the race. It stopped us from drawing a card, I probably should have disputed it there, but there is something to be said for saying this card doesn't beat us. Sweltering Suns will not beat me if it resolves, and I want to save these mystical disputes for something that does. I think that that's actually a pretty reasonable line. I mean, we are still taking the damage from this Fevered Visions right now, but I can counter everything my opponent does, blue spell or not, and they're aiming for something here. I guess the whole deck must just play at flash speed. All right, well, this is still a clock. I mean, this is enough to still outrace our opponent here. Go for the Curious Obsession. I mean, I think I just have to play into the Fevered Visions. Fine. All right, let's see what they go with here. The same situation. I might even let this removal spell resolve. I'm not sure. Oh, they want to Mystical Dispute it? Sure. That resolves. Let's attack. It's an interesting game. I mean, I do think I kind of punted by misclicking through that. Like I said, I think it's a defensible line, but we'll see what happens here with this Thassa. My opponent's run through 2 Mystical Disputes. I've been saving mine for the right moment. Will this be the right moment? Apparently not, because my opponent just has all the Mystical Disputes. And if I cast mine, they can pay for it. That feels bad. I guess the same logic has to apply. If it doesn't beat us, we let it resolve. I mean, look, we're at 12. We're not even at 12. We have 3 cards in hand now. This Fevered Visions is doing the work of our Curious Obsession for us. Censor, huh? Okay. Meanwhile, our opponent's down to 10. We've got 2 Mystical Disputes in hand. If they go for anything big, surely they're not going to shock again, right? Wow, okay, down to 8 then. Let's see if we've baited them into a false sense of security. We have not. My gosh. I think I punted this game. I've got these disputes that actually can't even hit anything. Alright, well, we have the Castle Vantress to scry. My opponent's at 8. There's the dive down. Right on time. Would have won us the game for a while now. Alright, well, we're figuring out what our opponent's deck does, at least. And there's a really bad Master of Waves, but a Master of Waves nonetheless. Yuck. Yeah, I thought I had a line that might work out okay here. It seems to have not. The misclick certainly did not help. Alright, let's see what we can scry into. Cards I don't really want right now. That's a card I want. This card will kill my opponent very quickly. Alright, so here we go. We've got the disputes and the dive down, and this thing's a 6-4. So, 7-4 when we untap. So with any luck, we will be able to win in a turn or two, except they're going to fry it. Well, I can't stop the fry. I believe I can counter it on resolution, though, by giving my creature hexproof. Is this the 4th Mystical Dispute? Is that what's happening? Not quite. Okay. Instead, it's an Ionize, which I can Mystical Dispute. See? The patience paying off right now. Unfortunately, I guess, we do still have 3 cards in hand, so we move to the instep here and take 2 more. Well, that's 4. Oh, no, that was after the trigger. Okay. We're safe. We're still playing out underneath the Fevered Visions, which, I mean, it doesn't make it a bad card for our opponent. It's dealt us, I think, all 10 damage, but it's a thing. Now, this is a Locust God, and this is also going to get Mystical Disputed. Now, my opponent does have, if they drew their 4th Mystical Dispute, or I guess a Spell Pierce or whatever, unfortunately for them, they did not. We were able to counter the Locust God. It's a sweet blue-red deck my opponent's got going on over there. Unfortunately, though, we're only putting them down to 1 right now with this next attack. Unless I find a way to cheat an island into play. I don't think I will. That's a nice draw, though. All right, let's get in for 7. I questioned myself holding on to those Mystical Disputes, but they came up clutch exactly when we needed them. All right, so I'm going to play this out. This is great. With my opponent at 1 life. This represents a lethal threat even through spot removal, which means it has to be a sweeper for my opponent. And then if it is a sweeper, protection from red on Master of Ways. Trust me, that's one I won't forget. I've played enough of this card. Means you can't fry it. That means you can't Sweltering Suns it. You can clear the board, but you're at 1 life, and this has pro red and deals 2. They have a Wandering Fumarole blocker, for what it's worth. All right, Locust God is a card. I'm gonna let this Fevered Vision trigger go on the stack, and then I'm gonna tap down the Locust God with Merfolk Trickster if I need to. There's the Sweltering Sun. Okay. Oh, it's not even good. It doesn't even kill my Djinn. This game's just over. All right. Well, we took the line with that counter magic, and we played this game out for a while, but it looks like it might have paid out in the end. Paid off in the end, rather. Well, okay, there we go. I'm not sure what happened there, actually. I wasn't... I actually... Oh, did I might have yielded priority to this earlier. I was like, I'm going to wait for the Fevered Vision trigger to go on the stack, then tap this down so they don't get the token. But as it turns out, instead, I guess I had said it. They would have got their token, but it doesn't matter. Trickster still taps it down. We still have lethal. That was a great match for Mono Blue Devotion, everybody. That was fun. All right, here we go. Jumping into the games with Mono Blue Devotion. This is an interesting hand. I believe that we are on the draw. Yeah, our opponent rolled a 2 and we rolled a 1. Okay, well, I think we have to mulligan this. If I was on the play, I might keep it, but 4 lands is a lot. We're only playing 19. Let's ship it and see if we can do a little better here. I mean, this is kind of what you get, but frankly, this hand is just fine. I think I can probably bottom a Dispute here. And then this hand looks quite good. We have a Sailor on their instep. We put a Curious Obsession on it on turn 2 with a dive down protection, and our engine is set up right off the bat here. Our opponent getting in on the 1-drop action. Thraben Inspector Life. This looks... Wow, okay. This looks pretty reasonable for us. I'm not going to lie. The Flash creature, our opponent playing reasonably fair with that Thraben Inspector. Our ability to just throw a Curious Obsession on this guy. Look, I think we've got a pretty nice shot in this game here. I mean, that said, we have no idea what our opponent's up to. For all I know, they're playing Doom Foretold. They're going to get us, but I'll see what we can do. Why wasn't this a Merfolk? This is what I say every time I see any good 1-drop that's blue. Why wasn't the Merfolk? Come on. Spirit Pirates, that's not what we needed. Spirits had enough ones already. But, with that said, this works out pretty fine for us. Our creature resolved. Here comes the Curious Obsession. It's going to resolve. And I think I probably just attack and see what happens here. I think I likely just keep up this dive down at all points of the game. I mean, our opponent's taking it. They have nothing. If they cast a blue spell, they go for a Teferi or something. We're going to get them with a Mystical Dispute. This all looks pretty good to me. And there's the 3rd land that we need. So next turn, we have a couple options. We can throw out a Stormtamer. Wow, just popping the clue, huh? Anyways, we can Stormtamer, we can dive down, we can put another Obsession on there. We've got all kinds of options. Our opponent probably needed to do something good with their mana there. And they cracking a clue was frankly probably not it. That said, they're going for their big play here. They got 3 mana. Got to work backwards. I assume there's blue involved. That's good. I would like there to be blue involved so I can Mystical Dispute this Teferi. It is possible that I let Teferi resolve and then dive down it or something like that, but I don't think so. We want to be able to hit players with this and not have to divert a point at the Teferi. So this looks pretty nice. Our opponent's going to need a Wrath or something like that. And I haven't fully figured out what they're playing either, but they're going to need a Wrath or something to really get through this. We do have options, though. I think I like just throwing another Curious Obsession on here. Why not? We can protect this thing for days. Let's get in and draw 2 cards. Playing Nykthos there would have been a break even. We have 3 colored. After that, we would have only had 2. It actually might not even have been good. So this seems just fine to me. Let's get our cards in there. All right, there's a Tempest Djinn. I think I'm safe to go for the Stormtamer here. Play the Stormtamer. That's an on-board trick that our opponent has to worry about to protect the Spectral Sailor. We can also dive down if we need it. And look at it this way. If our opponent has something that gets through this anyways, not that I know what that would be, we have another Curious Obsession ready to go. So Oh my gosh. Gisela the Broken Blade, huh? Flying, first strike, lifelink. Okay, well, I hate to say it, friend, but this is actually just going to lose in combat. So, I mean, it does have lifelink. They get a swing back. I guess that's pretty much their best option, but honestly, it's not great for them. Alright, now we can play Nykthos. It makes 4 mana now. Let's go ahead, and I guess I want to just attack first, I suppose. There's a couple options. I want to play the Tempest Djinn this turn. My opponent's not going to Wrath after committing that Gisela in all likelihood. So I want to play Tempest Djinn. I could tap this, add 4. The problem is that 4 would go away. I could play Tempest Djinn, and I guess another Curious Obsession on my Spectral Sailor. The problem is that mana just goes to waste otherwise. I think I'm just going to go for the Curious Obsession line here. I don't know. This is a tough call. This is a bit of a tough call. I want to pass the turn holding up the Stormtamer and the Dive Down as the thing. So maybe I just... maybe I just put a Curious Obsession on this thing. Our opponent hasn't been able to deal with it yet. Let's get in there. So here's what I'm expecting to happen. I think my opponent's going to block because it's a Spectral Sailor with 3 Curious Obsessions on it. And then we're going to have the most powerful dive down you can ever cast in Mono Blue Devotion, also known as the combat trick dive down, because it gives a creature +0/+3. All of a sudden, this first strike lifelink doesn't do you that good. You don't let me draw cards, but you do lose your Gisela, and I get to pass the turn with the Stormtamer open still. So point removal still no good against us. We didn't get a draw there. We got our Nykthos into play, so next turn will be quite big if we draw anything to do with it. And there is the Teferi. So, counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. That's even better than giving our creature hexproof, because we're actually going to deny them. I guess it works out all the same, but we get to easily deny them drawing a card here. So I need to choose the spell or ability. I will choose this. And pay the blue. I think I did that right. Now, my opponent could have another removal spell here. Looks like they don't. That would have been problematic. I mean, we're out of protection now, though, so I really hope we get to untap and get in there with this Spectral Sailor. My opponent's got 3 cards in hand. There's another Stormtamer. I like that, too. Let's go ahead and play it. I'm not entirely sure what my opponent could have here, but it seems like the answer might be nothing. All right, I'm going at them. There's no point. Whatever. They have the Teferi. We'll try to deal with it later. I can't pass up drawing 3 cards, obviously. And they were not bad. I mean, not the best, but certainly not bad. All right, let's go ahead and add our Devotion to Blue here. Gives us 5. I can play this. I can play this. And we get to pass the turn up, still with 1 mana to activate one of these Siren Stormtamers. Now, it's interesting how many lands we've actually drawn here. I mean, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands out of 19. Missing on that wasn't great. Now, if my opponent can't punish us for having nothing in our hand, well, it might not matter, but we will see what the big play here is. Siren Stormtamer, this might come up, by the way. I believe this hits Settle the Wreckage. I think it targets a player. I could be wrong. That seems like a card my opponent could have. I might actually check on that one real quick. Let's see here. How to Settle the Wreckage read. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. All right. Not that we have to worry about that quite yet. My opponent's going for this Resplendent Angel instead. You know what? This one's, in theory, kind of problematic, right? They get untapped. The life gain can be annoying. I mean, we are basically trying to poke our opponent to death here. We'll see what happens. Harbinger of the Tides I like quite a bit. I won't lie. That was a nice draw here. All right, so now we got the 4/4 Tempest Djinn. We've got the 4/4 Spectral Sailor. So let's send the Sailor at my opponent and the Tempest Djinn at my Teferi. At least make our opponent make some sort of decision here. Wow. They're going for the worst of all worlds here. Just lose everything. Now this game's just over. They have no chance. We get to pass the turn up. We get to flash in the Harbinger of the Tides if we want with 4 mana. I mean, we're going to make so much mana off this Nykthos at this point. This one seems like we might have it in the bag. I mean, our opponent's shocking themselves, so they're going to try to fight back, but they just lose to so many things that we can do right now. Given that Well, I guess this is probably still fine, even if some of it goes to add 9 mana. Some of this is going to go to waste, but that doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and cast this Harbinger of the Tides with Flash. So it costs 2. You can pay 2 more to cast it as though it had Flash. It returns a tapped creature to an opponent's hand. So I love the card in Merfolk, obviously. Mara Regery, you could do all these neat tricks before Mara Regery was too slow to even play, but you could cast it, tap the creature with the Regery trigger, then the Harbinger would interplay and bounce it. It was a pretty cool combo. I won't lie. You could also Violet in, getting it at instant speed, not having to pay 2. But we're playing Pioneer, not Modern, and this is not Merfolk. My opponent's deep in the tank. I think they might have realized that activating Resplendent Angel doesn't do much good because I'm just going to bounce it. So it looks like my spell is going to resolve here, and I would like to choose to bounce this thing. You know what? I could actually use this extra mana to scry before I lose it. Why not? I still have the Unsubstantiate up. I still have the Spell Pierce plus Siren Stormtamer, what have you. And, I mean, these cards are just good, so I guess I'll keep them. I suspect we'll be off and running for Game 2 very quickly here. Cycling the irrigated farmland, I like that. I think we have pretty much everything covered. This was pretty silly. You put 3 Curious Obsessions on the Spectral Sailor, go to town. It asks your opponent a very particular question. Do you have removal? Do you have flying blockers? Well, even if you have flying blockers, they may not be good enough. We killed a Gisela that game, but hey, and if you don't, you're just going to fall so far behind. That's what this deck does perfectly. Okay, so onto the sideboard here. We saw blue spells. I want these Mystical Disputes, that's for sure. What don't I want? The Cloudfin. I guess I'll cut. I mean, Trickster is pretty good too, is the thing. I cut the Unsubstantiate. Alright, do we want, say, the Entrancing Melody? I mean, it would take 6 mana to steal a Gisela. Certainly not out of the question. You know what? Sure, why not? We'll see what we can do here. I mean, the Essence Scatter seem good too. Frankly, our whole deck seems pretty good here. Is Ashiok good? I don't know that it's great. Alright, so let's make some cuts. Let's make some cuts so we can play all of these cards that are quite good against our opponent. We'll go ahead and cut a Melody. Probably trim on the Ops. We're playing the Essence Scatters. We don't need quite as many Unsubstantiates. I mean, the bounce aspect of it is obviously very good, but we do have the Brazen Borrower as well, and this to steal it. So we have 3 ways to interact with it, while preserving some flexibility here. I'm going to cut a Spell Pierce. My opponent played a lot of creatures. Even the 2 Spell Pierces might be too much. Certainly not an expert to sideboarding with this deck. It depends a lot on what your sideboard is and what your main deck looks like. Because right now there's a lot of different main deck builds of mono blue floating around. But I'll tell you, I'm in for this one. We've got the Spell Pierce on turn 1, should we need it. But after that, we just have a solid curve. I mean, we have a Tempest Djinn, it's a big hitter. We have the Harbinger of the Tides for interaction. And the Sea-Dasher Octopus is sort of our ticket to winning this game. That's how we're going to hope to pull too far ahead of our opponent. And that's our draw engine. That or Curious Obsession. You always want one of them. So, all right, let's see what our opponent's up to here. 2 mana for a Bishop of Wings, huh? Sure. So our opponent's just on Blue-White Angels. It was actually pretty sweet. Yeah, I'm in for that. All right, Bishop of Wings. Now, the thing is, like I said, remember we try to nickel and dime our opponents to death? Bishop of Wings, you gain 4 life whenever an angel comes into play. That is a lot of life. Going to stack up very quickly. That said, we have some good cards here, so I guess we just pass the turn. I mean, we've got the Trickster, should we need it. We've got the, more likely, I mean, look, what I would love to happen here is my opponent to go for Teferi. I Spell Pierce to the Teferi and then play the Spectral Sailor, put a Sea-Dasher Octopus on it when I untap. That would be the dream. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm going to get poked for 1, though. I am quite confident of that. Bishop of Wings getting in there. So for those who don't listen to my podcast is Brainstorm Brewery. It has come up once or twice that I like to eat Buffalo Wild Wings. I've been trying to get them to sponsor the podcast for years. I got Squatty Potty to sponsor my podcast at one point. They literally sent us all Squatty Potties and money, but I can't get Buffalo Wild Wings. Anyways, the point is this reminded me of it because someone did a pretty neat altar of me holding up chicken wings. Anyways, all right, so our opponent's just playing the Thraben Inspector and doing nothing else. So I guess that's good for us. Probably just playing on cracking this clue, I guess. All right, well, let's just go for this. We'll mutate onto our Spectral Sailor, and this should work. I mean, we have the Spell Pierce open. I got to make sure to do this right here. I would like to put it over. And now we start the value engine. Our opponent also has a value engine going on, but much less recursive, that's for sure. And they are just going to go ahead and pop the clue. They got 5 cards in hand. We're going up to 6 here. We need to draw another land. We don't need a lot more lands, probably, but, well, ask and you shall receive. There we go. I was going to say, we want probably one more, so the next turn we can go something like Tempest Djinn and hold up Spell Pierce. We basically want to hold the Spell Pierce up forever, and hope that we can eventually use it. Unfortunately, I cannot use it on that Deccan Stone. I mean, I could. Doesn't seem like it would do too much. I guess that resolves. We get a clue out of it. It's not the end of the world. It's a 2-for-1, sort of, except we already drew off the Octopus, and we get to crack the clue. I mean, I think we actually still come out ahead in that exchange. Our opponent gaining a little bit of tempo on us here, but we'll see if they ever even do anything with that, right? We get untap and just still having a pretty good play. Okay, Knight of the White Orchid. I like that one. First strike. All right, here we go. Oh, no. I cannot actually play the Tempest Djinn and hold up the Spell Pierce due to the Nykthos here. We could do some other stuff. We could play this. Gosh, all of the cards in everything in my hand is a blue mana symbol, except for the Master of Waves, which we don't want to cast yet. So, all right, I could use the Harbinger of Tides to bounce the Bishop of Wings. That would certainly slow my opponent down some amount. That said, this doesn't really do anything for us. And I don't think there's any way to convert this into mana. So basically our options are this. We can play the Stormtamer, pass the turn up with the Trickster and the Spell Pierce, and kind of see what happens. Or, I guess that also gives us the ability to crack that clue. Alternatively, we could just play Tempest Djinn and hope that things work out. Just all depends on how slow we think we can play it. I mean, I haven't seen the Angels yet. I think I can probably play it pretty slow, try to build to a big Master of Waves, hopefully with protection. I kind of like this line. It is very slow, very conservative. We're going to get beat down, but it means we don't just die to whatever's in our opponent's hand and we get to crack this clue. So the hope is that we get a Spell Pierce something here while we still can, before my opponent has too much mana. And then we can... I could also just play the Trickster, try to eat my opponent's Thraben Inspector, but I don't think that's going to be worth our time here. Let's hope that they play into our hands a little bit, and if they don't, well, we still get to crack the clue. So our mana, and they're just passing, our mana is going to get used one way or another here. The dream. Crack the clue into a 1-drop. I'm in. Our mana was used perfectly. Alright, well, unfortunately, this doesn't really make our decision any easier is the thing. Let's see what happens when we attack. Now I have the Stormtamer up, which is slightly different than the Spell Pierce. Still takes the 1 mana investment, but has a different set of payoffs, basically. I really want to mess with my opponent. I think I'm going to play the Harbinger and pass. Leaving me up. And the Harbinger just does nothing in play. But this seems like a turn to mess up my opponent's tempo. We're trying to turn the corner basically next turn, so I don't want them to cast whatever 5-drop they're holding on out of there and gain 4 life, and all of a sudden we're in a hopeless racing position. I think I like this line okay. We still have protection. Not that, you know, any of our creatures are particularly threatening, but we have the Spell Pierce as well. It gives us another turn to try to draw land so that we can cast the Tempest Djinn. I guess at this point now we also just have enough blue mana from our Nykthos that if we get to untap with this board, it might just work out. And that certainly worked out. There's the Gisela. I'm glad we bounced the Bishop of Wings. Haven't fully figured out how we're going to beat this card yet. But that's a problem for another turn. Let's see what we can do here. Now, this mana is going to waste, unfortunately, but it's just the price we paid. We had to get some Blue Devotion in there, try to get this Nykthos to pay off. Furious Obsession is also a card. I think probably next turn is when we'll target casting that. But, all right, let's go ahead and add 4 mana here. That allows us to Tempest Djinn, plus Stormtamer. And now, as long as our opponent doesn't play Bruna the Fading Light and make a big card with all those, what is that, Brizella, I think we can probably beat a lot of things that they would do. They're missing land drops, so the Spell Pierce has a good chance of being meaningful. But see, here's the thing. Now we're set up where when we untap, our Nykthos provides essentially infinite mana. We can Master of Waves, just create a giant board that is a racing threat to our opponent. All of which kind of matters because we bounced that Bishop of Wings and they're at 16 instead of 20, and it's coming back down now. But we hope that the Master of Waves with protection can get there. Hopefully our opponent plays a non-creature spell here, though. No such luck. Okay. All right, well, the Harbingers, I guess, are coming back in. This is just, it's not somewhat of a creature deck for my opponent. It is all creatures all the time here. And now racing gets pretty rough. This Trickster is going to come in handy, that's for sure. That's first strike. I certainly wish I had a dive down in hand right now. What if I just put the team in front of it? Is that insane? If I just, like, quadruple blocked right now, my opponent could choose to kill my Tempest Djinn or my other 3 creatures, and either way, they still lose the Gisela? Okay, I'm in. I talked myself into it. I don't know about this line, but I do know that my opponent has a very scary board. What are they going to get out of this thing when it dies? They're going to get a Spirit. You gain 5 or more. I just have to try to stop the life gain as best I can, and I'm going to go for this insane block here. I think what's going to happen is my opponent's going to choose to kill the Tempest Djinn, which means we trade the Tempest Djinn with the Gisela. Instead, that they go this route and take out all 3 of our creatures, but I actually think that this is kind of okay because we have to get that thing off the field. I mean, there's just not a lot of ways around that. We have to try to interact with what our opponent is doing. And getting 3 for 1 sucks a lot, but I'm just not sure we have any other line that works. We have to try to get... We're not going to race against that thing. We can wait and see if our attacks get, our blocks get better or what have you, but this is not the end of the world. Oh, this might be, though. I see. Yeah, maybe we won't be beating any of that. That's pretty good. Another island. We have we have our own 4/4, but our problem is that ours is never bigger than a 4/4. I can add a bunch of mana here. I got 5. I don't even want a Curious Obsession because I can't attack in a meaningful way. I mean, I guess a Curious Obsession, play the Trickster. I mean, that's 7 mana total. We have 7 mana total. I could Curious Obsession, the Djinn, play the Trickster, tap down this 4/4, play the Master of Waves, force him to chump block with a Spirit token, have a bunch of tokens on our side, but we can't race this. I'm not sure how we're supposed to win, frankly. We're going to have to Merfolk Trickster down the Resplendent Angel at the beginning of combat for them. I don't think we have a way out of this one. I'll go one more turn here, see what happens, but I think it's probably about scoop time for us. Anytime you start getting tokens off Resplendent Angel, that is when it becomes a problem. I was hoping that because of the block, we'd be able to stop it in the future, but it turns out Bishop of Wings makes it pretty simple. It only takes 1 more life, and they got it by attacking. So we needed to stop the Angel Train. The Angel Train rolls on, though, or flies on, I guess. And here comes the Teferi that... I mean, I guess we still do this. Spell Pierce doesn't do too much. Like I said, I'm not convinced we have a way to win, but we do have a shot here. I tap this one down, I guess. to get rid of the ability. I just don't think it really matters. Our opponent's just going to bounce our Tempest Djinn or our Master of Waves. I'm just going to move on to game 3 here. Let's get some better sideboard cards back in, though. These Harbinger of the Tides seem very good. I just want to go bigger than my opponent, and they don't seem to be interacting with me. I kind of thought that they would at some point, so I kept the Spell Pierces and all of that, but outside of Teferi, our opponent just doesn't seem to be interested in interacting with us. So I'm just going to go big. Screw it, right? Like, the Mystical Disputes are somewhat medium. Most of their creatures appear to be white, but paying 3 mana to counter something isn't out of the question. I mean, honestly, I like what we have here. We need to draw slightly better, but I guess I'll cut a Dispute. We have the Essence Scatters in there. Essence Scatter seems great here. Let's see if we get a nice aggro start. Oh. It is a nice aggro start. It is incredibly greedy of me to try to keep this. I'm a pretty greedy player. The thing is, a second land just makes the hand great, right? I don't mulligan this hand. I'm sorry, I don't keep this hand unless it has a very high odds of winning if it does get paid off. You know, every hand has to have something, go right for it. This hand just needs to draw a land. If it doesn't draw a land, it's still going to cast spells for several turns. We need to play a Siren Stormtamer. That'll trigger the Evolve on the Cloudfin Raptor. Then it can protect the Cloudfin Raptor. And we have the Mystical Dispute. So now would be a good time to hit a land, though. Not quite. Okay. I mean, look, the reality is it's almost certainly correct to ship this hand, to mulligan it. But it's just so tempting. You got to try to figure it out. Like, some decks can operate on one land fairly well. This could be one of them. I mean, look, we've played 2 spells, and we have 2 more we will probably be able to play in a relevant time manner. And if we also could draw, you know, we have a lot of 1-drops. We also have the Curious Obsession that would allow us to draw cards. I mean, if we're going to get untap here, this could work out fine. And look, we got our land. No harm, no foul. I'm going to pass the turn after this, though. I'm not going to try to get greedy here. I'm happy to get my damage in when I can. I can either dispute a Teferi on my opponent's turn, or I can flash in the Octopus then, or the Trickster or whatever. We missed a land drop on turn 2, but I do feel okay with where we're at now. My opponent's shocked themselves. If they just go for Teferi here, they're going to get blown out. It's a Bishop of Wings. Okay. I cannot stop that. Unfortunately for my opponent, this doesn't fly. And if we can find a land here... Yep, put it here. Look, we get the free counter value out of this. Don't know that we'll be triggering much more Evolve, but... Oh, they have a Dispute. Okay. Fair enough. Not a land. But... altogether not terrible. I mean, look, we're actually still... I say still, we're presenting the smallest reasonable clock weekend to our opponent, essentially coming in for 2 here. But I'm kind of hopeful that they just don't resolve another spell. Please go for a creature. Anything but that. Anything but an angel, please. I mean, I guess I could have trickstered this, but I need to attack. Man, my opponent just has another Mystical Dispute open. And they might have drawn a little better than us. Let's see what happens, though. Alright, well, okay. Hey, look at that. We get to tap it down. We get another Evolve trigger on our Cloudfin Raptor. Maybe my opponent has nothing this time around. They didn't shock themselves or anything like that, so... Alright, let's see what happens. Curious Obsession is not bad. Now we have a decision, though. I could play the Curious Obsession. I could put it on the Cloudfin Raptor. I could start attacking. We will draw cards. I'm terrified of my opponent just untapping, though. Activating their Resplendent Angel. They actually make mana with their own Nykthos, so they have 6 to get it. I feel like I'm going to need to Harbinger of the Tides this thing, so... Let's see if we can get a Harbinger of the Tides to resolve. I really would have liked to hit a 3rd land, obviously, so that we could protect against the Mystical Dispute. But here we go. If this resolves, we might have a shot. If it gets Mystical Disputed, we're in trouble, but we will see. Alright, well, sometimes your opponent has it all. Unfortunate. Yeah, I think this probably does us in here. See how, I mean, if we'd hit one, wow, my opponent's not even going for it. Maybe they didn't have the 5th land to drop. Okay. The problem is their creatures are all bigger than ours. We needed to have our counter spells open for this, and we were not fortunate enough to have that break our way. Yeah, I gotta say, I think we're dead. Good match. We had a risky keep. We didn't get there. And look, I know I probably don't mulligan enough. I do think this was super reasonable, though. I mean, look at our hand. We can cast almost everything here. This game came down to the... It's not like we couldn't operate on 2 mana. It came down to the fact that our opponent had 1 mana leaks. You know, that's... They had their 3rd land drop, and they had their 1 mana leaks, and ours rotted in our hand. I mean, maybe you should mulligan, but sometimes that hand just works out. You know, sometimes... Look, we were literally just 1 land away. We got our 2nd, as we kind of expected. If we had had a 3rd on that last turn, we could have Mystical Disputed the Dispute. We could have bounced this back to their hand. Then they play this, and we'd play a giant Tempest Djinn. You know, there were ways this game could have worked out for us. If there's a calculated risk on the keep, we didn't quite get there. The way it goes sometimes. But, altogether, a fun match.